What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It's another episode of JohnnyVTV Live. Joined, as always, with my boys Nick Durst, Kyle Donnelly. How's it going, fellas?
I think Kyle's doing great. He's going to probably talk about the Devils right now for the next 15 minutes before we get to anything else.
Nice opening win against the Blackhawks, but that's it. We'll keep moving forward.
Exactly. Let's call it what it is. This is not a hockey show. It is probably the fourth thing we would discuss on this podcast here. But you know what, man? Listen, before we get into the nitty-gritty on the football gridiron here, we have some baseball talk. And you know what? We have with us a great researcher from MLB Network, Matthew Searle. Let's bring him on, man. How are we doing today, Matt? Thanks for taking the time, brother. How's it going?
Oh, everything's great. Thank you for having me on. So excited to talk baseball, especially with the postseason going on.
Thanks for being on, Matt.
Oh, my pleasure.
It's literally happening right now as we speak. So let's get right into this. First off, we got the Braves and the Dodgers coming into the game. The Braves were plus 162 on the money line, where the Dodgers were minus 177.5. Currently, because the MLB decides to just do this pretty much in the middle of a work day, the Dodgers are up 2-0 after 2 innings. What's your take on this game coming into it? You know, obviously the Dodgers have their backs against the wall, and things are not really looking up for them. Max Muncy was really the nucleus of this offense right now, and they've been struggling against the Braves, who just somehow keep coming away with comeback wins. What is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much to unpack with this series. I mean, what's kind of interesting is last year in the NLCS, it was Braves-Dodgers. Braves also took a 2-0 lead in that series. The Dodgers ended up winning. But I do agree that even though the Dodgers were able to take down an 106-win team in the Giants, or 107-win team in the Giants, the Braves are certainly not a cakewalk. And I think the Braves are an example of a team that's gotten hot at the right time. They didn't really burst out, really run away with the NL East until August. And they were really helped at the deadline by bringing in a bunch of corner outfielders, Eddie Rosario, Adam Duvall, Jorge Soler. Those guys have really solidified their lineup. So even though the Dodgers are winning right now, and I would have said that they would win this game regardless of what the score was at this moment, I don't think the Braves are easy competition. I think the Dodgers are seeing that. And I think without Kershaw, obviously we know, the horrible reasons why Trevor Bauer is not in that rotation. Won't get into that. But I think the Dodgers are feeling it a little bit. I think there is more pressure on them this year. And I think if they don't win this series, there are going to be some skeptics out there who say, well, yeah, you won in 2020, but that was a 60-game pandemic-shortened season. So you're going to hear the term Mickey Mouse thrown around a lot. So I think the Dodgers have a lot against them in this Braves series. I think they're going to even it up these next 2 days, but I don't think it's going to be an easy task.
So it's interesting here. Coming into this game, I was looking at it ahead of time. Walker Buehler, he's their stopper on the mound. Of course, you got a stopper like Max Scherzer. He's the guy's all time. But Walker Buehler, 11-2 at home this season, just barely over 2.05 ERA. The guy who's been lights out when it comes to playing at Shea Ravine. And, that obviously counts for something. And like you said, the Braves are no cakewalk. And you're projecting them to tie it up, win the next 2 games at home. Do you see the Dodgers fully coming back like they did last year in this NLCS, or do you think the Braves are going to find a way to get these last 2 wins and get their way to a World Series?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little reluctant to make predictions because, to be honest, if I had filled out a bracket before this postseason started, I think it would have been totally busted by now. I did not think the Red Sox were getting past the Rays. I thought the White Sox were going to do better against the Astros. So I have been mostly wrong in this postseason so far. So I think because this is a little bit of a topsy-turvy postseason, I'm going to say that the Braves are going to find a way to get into the World Series. And this is just not going to be the Dodgers here, and the Dodgers are going to fall just a little bit short. And I think we're kind of seeing some of the signs that maybe the Dodgers aren't going to have quite enough to win this series. Some of the ways that they've used their bullpen, using Julio Urias in relief, and, Max Scherzer, they used him to close out Game 5 of the LDS, and then he was a little gassed the other night. He had to come out after 79 pitches. So I think they're kind of stretching their pitching staff a little bit thin. And for that reason, I think the Braves could win this. And I'm going to say it's going to go 7, but I think the Braves are going to shock people and win this series and go to the World Series.
What's funny here, Matt, is we were talking earlier this summer or I would say later in the summer, after Ronald Acuna went down, we had a discussion on this show. Nick and Kyle could back me up on this. I'll be the first one to say, I did say I did not believe in the Giants fully, and I was just really surprised at them. But then when I was talking about the Braves, Ronald Acuna goes down, I'm like, they're done. Not only are they not going to win the division and make the playoffs, but they're not going this far nonetheless. And look what happens. Acuna goes down. Like you said, they make a couple trades. They weren't really splash plays, but they make enough acquisitions to really supplement the loss. Jorge Soler's got some of the best power in the entire MLB, but he played in Kansas City all these years, so not too many people really knew about him. And Jock Peterson, he started to step up when it counts the most. Eddie Rosario was a very low-key, solid addition coming over from Cleveland. Adam Duvall, I mean, the guy hit nearly 40 home runs this season. He absolutely drops bombs. So I got to give credit where it's due. The resiliency that this team has showed with all the injuries and the injuries to star players this year, you really got to tip your cap. And the fact that they're even here is just so impressive. But they really, like you said, have a legitimate shot to close out the Dodgers and get to the World Series. What do you think, Nick?
I am so sick of Jocktober. Ugh, enough. I just
I love the pearls.
You know, I like Jock Peterson, but ever since he's been a Brave, I haven't. If I was looking at the postseason before it started here, literally the last 3 teams that I would have said are going to the World Series would have been the Yankees. I was right on that. And I would have said the Braves and the Red Sox. And here we are. We're looking at it's going to be a Braves-Red Sox World Series in all likelihood. I don't have an issue with the Red Sox. I've always rooted for them, but I can't stand Alex Cora. The Braves, obviously, I do not want to see them win anything. So let's hope the Dodgers could do something here. But I think what we really got to discuss here, Matt, is just like these managers are ruining. They're killing themselves. I mean, how many bullpenning games can you go? It's not sustainable. You see it. We saw it last year with Cash. You're seeing it this year all over the place. If you have 8 innings of a game pitched by a reliever, when you need a reliever in a key spot the next day, they're blowing it because they're too tired. Or you see like the Dodgers are bringing in starting pitchers in the 8th inning, and they're going to pull Scherzer. It's crazy. That's the reason why the Rays lost. That's the reason why the Astros have been losing. That's the reason, why the Dodgers are down here. It's their own doing. The Brewers, they should have been going to the World Series. Maybe they horribly managed their pitching staff. Craig Counsell, terrible job.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Sorry, Matt, but I was going to say that, Nick, before you brought that up, was absolutely that's what is the Achilles heel right now for the Astros is that they're having to dig into their bullpen, and they've been having to do so since Game 2. And it's really been costing them big time in this series, and it's been paying dividends for the Red Sox, and it's clearly obvious.
Yeah, and I mean, Nick, you really hit on it in that the last couple years, I would say the last 3 years of postseason baseball, we've just seen this revolution in the way that pitching staffs are deployed. And now it feels like every manager wants to bring in the next day's starting pitcher in relief to finish a game. And while that sometimes does work, especially if you're at the end of a series, okay, we can bring Max Scherzer in to close this out. It does have residual effects if, the series is continuing and then you can't use that pitcher to start the next game, or you have to take him out earlier, like we saw with Scherzer. And so I think a lot of these managers are getting a little too cute with the bullpen usage. And what was once a surprise weapon of let's bring in a Patrick Corbin from the bullpen or a Steven Strasburg, we saw that with the 2019 Nationals when they won their championship. Now it's not as effective a maneuver because everybody expects it. And it does have an effect when you're running through 8-9 relievers a night, and then you have to expect them to go the next day or 2 days from now. So I think the 2018 Red Sox and 2019 Nationals were really good at using their pitching staffs in unique ways. But remember the 2019 Nationals, they did that almost completely out of necessity because they had the worst bullpen ERA in the majors that year. They had a horrendous bullpen. So they were like, all right, let's just limit it to like 2 guys. We can have, Tanner Rainey and Daniel Hudson pitching late innings, but we're also going to use, Patrick Corbin for several innings. And they were able to win series and, they got to the end. But I think especially this year when you're looking at a season that was already coming off a pandemic shortened season where teams were only having like 3 out of 5 pitchers in their rotation, only, like 3 starters on their roster. So they were doing bullpen games every other day, like the Rays. Well, that worked for the Rays in the 162 game season. I think when you get to October, it is nice if you can have a pitcher go 6 or 7 innings. So I think what we're realizing this postseason is that starting pitching still does matter, and you still need to have, a full rotation of starting pitchers.
Absolutely, Matt. And sorry, John. Absolutely, Matt. But you definitely, it goes to show you really need that ace, Chris Sale and Max Scherzer for the Nationals in 2019 being the key components in those teams.
Absolutely.
What I would say here is I hate this, and it goes with any sport. I've seen it in football a lot, see it in baseball now over the last few years. Teams go away from what got them there. You look at the Dodgers, like, okay, obviously you don't have Clayton Kershaw, you don't have Trevor Bauer, but you still have Max Scherzer, you have Walker Buehler, you have Julio Urias, who led the league in wins, and you're just trying to get too cute and do these weird things that is not what proved to be so successful and your bread and butter throughout the regular season. Like, obviously, you're not going to go so relief heavy like they're doing now. Like, this is a sprint now. Now it's all hands on deck. I understand that, but they're trying to get too cute and come up with these innovating things, and that's what I don't really like. I'm not a big fan of it. I guess I'm somewhat of a baseball purist, but at the end of the day, you need to stick to what got you there. And another team that's been doing that, and we touched on it, the Houston Astros. Now we see what they're dealing with. Lance McCullers was pretty much the one somewhat anchor, you could call it, in the rotation. He looks like he's done for the postseason. And Zach Greinke is not the Zach Greinke that, we knew a few years ago. The Astros obviously have a far fall from that rotation with Verlander, Cole, Greinke, McCullers. It's not like that anymore. And now they're throwing in a ton of these guys basically every night with this carousel of relief pitchers. And look at what the Red Sox are doing. They are absolutely hitting the cover off the ball. So when you get down to the nitty gritty, we got another game here. We got the Astros plus 120 in the money line with the Red Sox minus 130. Do we think the Red Sox are going to get this one done against Zach Greinke, who, by the way, in his career has allowed 14 earned runs at Fenway Park in only 12 1/3 innings?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, I have to say I'm so impressed by what the Red Sox are doing now. Obviously, the Astros pitching staff, other than McCullers, you're right, they've totally fallen apart. Framber Valdez, Luis Garcia were just totally ineffective. But, I mean, the Red Sox offense, you never see teams hit like this in October. Even the teams that, lead the league in runs usually struggle because you're facing better pitchers, facing almost entirely aces when you get to the postseason.
They got 4 guys that are hot right now, Matt.
Yeah. And the Red Sox just have this total rhythm at the plate. I mean, they've already become the first team to hit 3 grand slams in a single postseason series. So that was 2 games worth. So you never see a team like this locked in the postseason and making it embarrassing the other team to the point where they almost have to bring in a position player to pitch just so they can set up the next game. So I just think the Red Sox are so hot right now. They're locked in. I love Zach Greinke. I'm a huge fan of him. I think he's a borderline Hall of Fame case when it's all said and done. But I think the Red Sox stay hot tonight, especially Greinke. He's probably only like a 40 pitch count. He tested positive for COVID in September, had some neck soreness, so hasn't really built up his arm and hasn't had a start in a long time. I think like September 19th was his last start. So I think you get a rusty Zach Greinke on the mound. He's probably only in there for a couple innings. And I think the Red Sox have another big game offensively. I think they're just in one of those grooves right now.
I equate this to what the Boston Red Sox are doing. And, towards the end of the season, like, obviously they stayed in pace in wild card contention through most of the second half of the summer after the All-Star break, because a lot of teams, and we talked about this on the show earlier this summer, that they were pretty much getting written off before the All-Star break. They just couldn't find their groove. And I was one of these guys that didn't believe in Boston. Like, all preseason, I was like, listen, their offense is legit. They have one of the best offenses in the league when they're clicking, but their rotation without Chris Sale is going to be a problem. And, like, let's call it what it is. Boston's pitching rotation was not great this year. They were serviceable.
I was waiting for the bottom to fall out on the Red Sox as a Red Sox fan, so let's be honest.
They were serviceable, but now it's a perfect example of when a team just gets hot at the right time. You equate it to like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What they're doing, putting up all these numbers on offense, is pretty much what the Bucs were doing going into the postseason. You just get hot at the right time, and nobody wants to face you. I mean, there is no weaknesses in this Boston Red Sox lineup. And when you couple that with the fact that the Astros, not only pitching rotation, but their bullpen is basically on life support with just a merry-go-round of guys and arms that are coming in nonstop, and it's just very ineffective. It's tough for Houston to get off the schneid here. And, you know, their offense isn't exactly what we expected. Boston's pitching rotation has just been – they've been butter. That's the only way to say it. So I honestly see this being a much taller task for the Astros to come back than, let's say, the Dodgers. Kyle, I know you're jumping for joy right now with Boston because you could smell it right now. You could just absolutely taste Boston getting their first chip in quite a few years.
I can feel it, Johnny, definitely. But the thing is don't touch, like Boomer Esiason would say, don't touch the money. I'm just thinking about one game at a time right now as a Red Sox fan, and
congratulations on the World Series, Kyle.
Stop it. No. You are not doing that. So, okay? I'm pointing up here. You're not doing that, okay?
Evaldi looks incredible. And, I mean, I think the Astros, they really missed Justin Verlander. I mean, that goes without saying. What a shame about him. And I wonder where they'd be if they signed George Springer, who had a great season and is one of the best all-time players in the postseason. But
would definitely be the boost they would need on their lineup right now, for sure.
Dusty Baker, you know, he deserves a championship. I'll have to see him get one. You know, the Astros have to win tonight. They have to. Win. Otherwise it's done. Where, you know, I think they might, if they lose tonight, I don't think they're even going back to Houston. I think that's it.
Well, here's the other thing to your point there, Nick, about Zach Greinke and whatnot, is the man is, or Matt's point rather, excuse me, earlier, is that Greinke is coming off of COVID and not really getting to stretch his arm back out. So that's going to be a problem, number one, right there. How long is he really going to be able to go? He's probably going to give you like 3 or 4 innings, you think, Matt? Tops maybe tonight?
Yeah,
if he's really good.
4 innings. Home after 39 pitches. What a joke.
And the thing is, Zach Greinke is not one of these burners where he's going to throw 95 past you like he used to. You know, now he's floating down around the 88 range and 86, like throwing the really soft stuff and getting movement to get guys out.
Kyle, all you need to know is if you're a Red Sox fan, just like hope you don't see Hansel Robles in the game, because that means you're going to get.
Well, that made me sweat the other night. Don't you worry. I thought about it. Trust me, I did. As soon as
he came in, I said, "Oh, he's going to get a home run."
I said that to my wife too, and my wife was like, "What are you talking about?" And it was like, "Yeah, this guy Nick Durst up here knows what he's talking about." Exactly. I was thinking the exact same thing as a Met fan. Like, "Oh boy, here we go. Here's the gas can getting dumped on the mound right now." But anyway, last point: Zach Greinke. He didn't want to get traded to New York. He didn't want to get traded to Boston. He ends up in a place like Houston, which is a little bit of a smaller, big city. You know, it's not New York. It's not Boston. It's not L.A. Point is, Zach Greinke wanted to be in a small market to avoid situations like this. I think he shrinks and is small in this situation tonight. Sox, again, got to go out there, got to hit him early, tag him early like you did Garrett Cole in the wild card playoff game.
So how are we feeling here? Does everybody think it's going to be a Red Sox Brave series, or do we think the Dodgers end up facing the Red Sox? Because the way it's looking right now, it's going to be very difficult for Houston to come back here. What are we feeling?
If I may, real quick, the Dodgers and the Braves and Red Sox, that would be really cool as far as like old time baseball goes, because you got the Braves that used to be in Boston, so it'd be the two. Like Boston, like, you know, I mean,
promise you, nobody cares about that.
I know nobody cares about that, but that's a cool
Think
angle.
About all the Boston Braves fans still alive.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
they might know that. Babe Ruth was a coach for the
right?
Boston Braves at one point. Yeah,
right, exactly, and played maybe for a year.
Played his final seasons there. Yeah.
So that being said, I would love to see Mookie Betts come back, and let's see who wins it. You know what I mean? That'd be a great storyline too for the Dodgers Red Sox.
So Matt, let's get down to the nitty gritty here. The most important thing we may have ever talked about on the show. We've harped on them all summer long. They cost me a futures bet. Why can't the Mets get it together? Why can't they hire a president of baseball operations? Please, for the love of God, enlighten me.
I mean, your guess is good as mine. And, even though I do work for the team in the entertainment division, putting up notes and trivia on the scoreboard during the home games at Citi Field, I'm obviously not privy to those conversations that go on in the front office. But my best guess for right now is they're just setting their sights very high. Obviously, they were looking at Billy Beane and David Stearns. But some of these guys, I mean, David Stearns, he's got a nice job there in Milwaukee. They're looking at guys that already are in positions that they're comfortable in, that they've succeeded in, and I think it's tough to bring those type of people in and entice them enough to want to come and put themselves in an entirely new situation, even if it is the big city, the Big Apple, New York. As terms of as something like Theo Epstein, maybe he's just enjoying his break, being an advisor to the league office rather than trying to run a team right now. Obviously, he turned it around in both Boston and Chicago, but maybe he's not looking to be a GM right now. But I think right now they've been trying to reel in those big fish, and they just don't have quite enough to reel them in. So I think it's going to be interesting to see exactly what they go with. My personal feeling is that in order for the organization to really make a huge leap forward and to have the kind of progress that Steve Cohen wants them to have, I think they're going to have to go for someone like an Eric Neander or an Andrew Freeman, one of those, someone who was either born in the Rays system or that is very cutting edge when it comes to analytics, because whether you like them or not, you have to be on the cutting edge when it comes to analytics and having, a data retrieval and information department in your front office. So I don't know exactly who the candidates are that they're looking at, other than the names that I just mentioned. But hopefully they can get that wrapped up soon. But I think it might take a few more weeks and maybe even go up until the winter meetings.
So basically, what you're saying, the Mets are like that guy that keeps trying to steal everybody else's girlfriend.
True. Yeah. It's tough when she's already in a relationship she's comfortable in.
Something, it's just what annoys me, and this was a topic after it happened after the trade deadline. Guys, we talked about this a lot. Like, I'm happy that the Mets made a move to get somebody. They got Javi Baez. Now, obviously, he didn't have too much of an impact. He missed a fair amount of games with injuries, more than you would hope for. The Mets could never get their full lineup out there for an extended period of time. That includes their pitching rotation as well. So a lot of ins and outs in the lineup is very difficult for a team to build consistency. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing we talked about, Matt, was, yeah, sure, Javi Baez is cool, and Frankie Lindor and him are best friends. But the fact of the matter is, you go out, you trade for another shortstop, when you have a shortstop that you just paid almost $350 million for the next decade plus, as opposed to going to get the guy that we really wanted and we think would have made a bigger impact. I mean, look what he did for the Giants, is Chris Bryant. Chris Bryant could play third base, the outfield. In a pinch, he could play first base. Knock wood, something happened to Pete Alonso, and you don't know what's going on with the DH rule over the next few years. But Chris Bryant would have been the guy to go get. A little bit more versatile. He fills out more positions, because now think about it over the long haul. If you go get Javi Baez, who's more of a rental guy, what are you going to do? Javi Baez is going to want that Frankie Lindor type money. So you're going to pay two guys who one of them is going to have to move to second base most likely, or third base. And you're going to pay two guys in the neighborhood of $700 million combined, when that money could have been better spent on a true third baseman / outfielder, who, in my opinion, is a better ball player than Javi Baez. I mean, that right there, to me, right, Nick, like we talked about this, that wasn't that great of a decision, in my opinion. And Chris Bryant obviously goes to the Giants, and he had a pretty good impact, and he contributed down the stretch for San Francisco.
You know who would have traded for Chris Bryant? Brodie Van Wagenen. I don't know why they were so quick to fire him, because they should have just kept him for one season for some stability, because they were late in the offseason. They're missing out on things. Have him 1 year, then you could have got rid of him. Say what you want. He's an aggressor. But who really would have got Chris Bryant? Chaim Bloom, who they decided to pass on to hire Brodie Van Wagenen, who ends up being with the Red Sox and is on the cusp of winning a World Series here. I would love to see them hire maybe Omar Minaya because he knows scouting in some capacity. Bring him back.
Again?
I wouldn't have let him go. Look, if you look at the Mets roster from 2015 to now, all like the big stars were scouted by him at some point. But this is maybe a little taboo. I don't know. I think it should be. But the guy maybe they should be looking at is Jeffrey Luhnow, who built the Astros. They win their championship. Say what you want, but Core is back. Hinch is back. They were more involved than him. Bring in Luhnow. And if you're not going to hire Buck Showalter because he's not going to be a puppet, let him hire Carlos Beltran. Have Beltran finally make his Mets debut.
That's the thing is like someone like Jeff Luhnow, but without the baggage is exactly what the Mets need. Now, to your point, Johnny, I think Chris Bryant is a better ball player than Javi Baez. Obviously, he gives you that versatility where even now he's playing center field. The fact that he can play a decent defensive outfield is really nice. I will say this. Javi Baez is not generally the type of player that I would, fall in love with, but because he's a free swinger, he strikes out a lot, low on-base percentage. We know the flaws with Javi Baez, but I will say that he did really impress in his 2 months with the Mets. I mean, he had like a 935 OPS, almost like a Cespedes-like OPS in his run with the Mets. He had the best offensive numbers of any of those Cubs guys that got traded, including Rizzo and Bryant. And it's hard to find guys that can hit well at Citi Field. And he is versatile enough where, yes, he could play short, but he can also play second. He can play third. So I think, obviously, they cannot sign him for Lindor type of money. They're not going to give out another $300 million contract, nor do I think Javi Baez is worthy of that kind of money. But I think if he were willing to take a little bit of a discount because he likes Francisco Lindor so much and they're such great friends, and hey, you guys can both be on the left side of the infield together, that's how you try to snag Javi Baez. And I would seriously look into that. Now, based on
$500 million up the middle.
I mean, look, you
might as well get Correa for third base, reunite the Puerto Rican team, right? That might be something.
Well, that's the thing is you have to look at all those options, and I think the wild card here is Robinson Cano. I mean, you still have Robinson Cano in the fold. He's under contract for next year, and he's making a lot of money. But is there going to be a DH in the National League next year? Now, most people agree that there probably will be universal DH once the CBA negotiations are resolved. So is Robinson Cano your DH? Is he your everyday second baseman? Do you just cut ties with him completely and eat the $20+ million?
That's why they need to trade Dom Smith for some pitching.
Right. So there are just lots of decisions here. So I would be very interested in Javi Baez, but obviously it does come down to the final dollar figure.
That is going to be one of the major topics of the winter. I'm very curious to see because with what the Mets have, and we got to see what's going on with DeGrom. If Syndergaard stays, it looks like Marcus Stroman's probably on his way out. The Mets are very close to, in my opinion, dismantling a pretty strong roster considering all things. Like, the Mets for the first half of the season were on top of the division. Granted, the division wasn't that great at the time, but still at the end of the day, like, it counts for something that they have enough players to be a team that I really thought they were going to be close to 95 wins this year. Like, it just didn't come together. They just could not stay healthy. It's very unfortunate, but I don't want to see the Mets dismantle the whole thing because we don't know the next time that they're going to have a team that is really going to be worthy to compete for a World Series again. I mean, I don't really think the Mets have had one of the better farm systems in baseball for the most part in the last decade plus, but they're a team that's going to have to spend in order to keep up. They're not like the Tampa Bay Rays. It's just not their philosophy. It never has been. And, the pitching questions are going to be probably the most important. And when it comes to Javi Baez, Lindor, you look at Frankie Lindor, he's a great player. He was my NL MVP pick coming into this year because I thought he was just going to light it up. He's a guy that could be 30-30 on average every season, fully healthy. But you look at it, he's never been a 315, 320 guy. He plays at the top of the lineup, most of his time in Cleveland, if they've moved him second, third hole sometimes. But although he does hit for power, a guy that's at the top of the lineup who you're hoping that's going to be hitting 300 plus. He's not that guy. He's more of a 275 to 290 at best. And you combine that with Javi Baez, who, also is in that same type of category. It's a lot of hit or miss, and you need a little bit more fluidity and a little bit more consistency if you're going to compete at a high level consistently.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I think the toughest thing about this year for the Mets was that, like you were saying, if everybody had played to their career numbers or even close to those, they would have been a 90-plus win team. They probably would have won the division, considering that they did spend 103 days in first place. But the thing is that everybody that they thought was part of their core, Jeff McNeil, Dom Smith, basically everybody, Michael Conforto, basically everybody other than Pete Alonso had the absolute worst offensive year of their career. Whether that's because they were coming off the shortened season or because of the deadened ball or other factors, I'm not exactly sure, but I think that is the most challenging part of this Mets season is that guys that you took for granted that you said were going to produce. Oh, Jeff McNeil, he's going to hit 300. Michael Conforto, he's going to hit 30 home runs. Those guys were absolutely terrible. And yeah, Lindor struggled. He had a terrible first 40 games. He turned it around and had a really nice second half. So I'm not worried about him going forward. But I think the thing is what the Mets are looking at right now is these players that they thought were part of the core maybe just aren't good enough. And maybe you do have to look beyond them and try to reshuffle the deck a little bit and try to build a stronger core. So I think while they can improve offensively in a lot of different ways, whether that's a Chris Bryant at third base, whether that's signing a Nick Castellanos or Starling Marte for the outfield. I do think they will sign one of those free agents because obviously
Nick
they need it.
Castellanos, my boy.
Yeah, I love Nick Castellanos.
That's my guy, man.
Yeah, exactly. I think the bigger issue is going to be the pitching because the team totally lost all morale when Jacob deGrom went down this year. And Marcus Stroman, he made 34 starts. Whether you like Marcus Stroman or not, he led the majors in starts, took his turn every 5 days, and had I think like the seventh best ERA in the National League. So I think pitching is going to be the biggest concern for the Mets next year because you have Stroman and Syndergaard, both as free agents. We only saw Syndergaard in a couple appearances that were one inning each in relief or as a starter. And so what is this rotation going to look like? David Peterson was someone that they thought could be like a fifth starter. He got hurt. Joey Lucchesi was okay. Then he got hurt. So I think they're going to have to take some of these pieces that they thought were going to part of the core, whether it's Jeff McNeil or Dom Smith or JD Davis, that at least have a little bit of a major league track record. And they're going to have to trade those for pitching because I don't think they're going to sign a big free agent pitcher. But they are obviously going to have to bolster their pitching staff going into next year. And Jacob deGrom, who has been a 200-plus inning pitcher in the past, something that they've taken for granted, you can't assume that going into 2022. So I think pitching is going to be the biggest problem, and I think they're going to have to be very active on the trade front.
So if they pony up and they go for something like that, Matt, who would you see as the young, controllable pitcher that they would go for?
That's a great question. I would kind of have to look and see what different contracts are at right now. I mean, I think they should look for kind of what Toronto did with Robbie Ray this year, someone who was, an okay pitcher, but had good peripherals. Robbie Ray has always had a really good strikeout rate. He's always been a little bit wild, kind of a 5-inning pitcher. But someone like that who's still on the younger side of 30, that has decent swing and miss numbers, but that maybe hasn't put it all together. I think those are the kind of guys that they need to be looking for. Maybe not a Sonny Gray, someone a little younger than that, but someone that has the potential but hasn't quite gone over the top yet.
I don't think so. Sorry, don't mean to cut you off, John, but I don't think Sonny Gray is going to get it done in New York, bro.
Yeah, I mean, certainly not based on what he did with the Yankees. That was just a name that came to mind, but yeah, not specifically him.
Certainly going to be a big topic of conversation for the winter, but Matt, before we let you go, we have our Emerge Player of the Night brought to you by Emerge Sports Group, our boy Jay Hen. Take it away.
All right. Well, you know what? A lot of the players in this Red Sox offense have absolutely been clicking. Kike Hernandez having one of the best postseason runs we've ever seen. Kyle Schwarber, Kyle from Waltham, as a lot of people are calling him these days, is red hot at the plate. JD Martinez was homering the other night. So which Red Sox has kind of gotten lost a little bit, has flown under the radar. I'm going to say Xander Bogaerts hasn't really had a big hit since the wild card game. I think he's due. So I'm going to go Xander Bogaerts. I think I'll say first inning home run off of Zach Greinke. Why not?
Bowl, baby. Let's get after it. Matt, we thank you so much for joining us. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Absolutely. All right. Yes. So you can follow me on both Twitter and Instagram at Searle Baseball. You can see all my stats, all the notes that I write for the Citi Field scoreboard there, and as well as my other work. You can also check out my personal website, searlebaseball.com, where I write about all 30 teams, the latest news, latest analysis, and in-depth statistical discussion. So check out Searle Baseball on Twitter and Instagram, as well as searlebaseball.com.
Matt, thank you so much. Look forward to having you on again very soon.
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
Definitely a great topics of conversation, and looking forward to baseball. It's not over yet, and it looks like the Braves have just taken the lead.
Absolutely, they have. They're about another pitch or two from blowing this thing completely open.
It's still football season. So with that being said, Nick, what was your reactions to Week 6? Who or what stood out?
You know where I'm going with this. Kyler Murray, MVP, 4 more touchdowns. Cardinals win again. Another statement win, smacking around the Browns. Browns are in trouble. You're not the lock for the playoffs anymore at this point.
Browns weren't healthy though. Browns weren't healthy though going into that game.
I understand, but that's what I'm saying. They're in trouble.
The shoe is going to drop for Arizona. It's going to drop for Arizona. Kyler Murray's MVP bid right now is contingent on the Cardinals' record right now. If the Cardinals were 4-2, Murray wouldn't be a top 3 candidate right now.
I get what you're saying, John, but I don't see the bottom falling out for the Cardinals.
Yeah, we'll see about that, man. Let's see what the
I'll
Rams
tell you who
have
is
to say.
definitely not going to be MVP. Matthew Stafford. Guy's got no shot.
I don't know where you're saying that. He's top 3.
What do you think, Kyle?
Where are you saying Matthew Stafford's not going to be an MVP candidate? He's
Matt
the best
Stafford's
division
up
of
there,
football.
yeah. He's definitely up there, but he's not as impressive as Johnny was making him out to be, where he was going to be like the second coming of Peyton Manning going to Denver.
He's not Tom Brady.
Well, basically, he was trying to. I'm sorry, John, but you basically try to make the Matt Stafford move to LA seem like it was going to be the Brady move to Tampa or the Peyton Manning move to Denver. Like that kind of ask.
I'm sorry. Are the Rams not 5-1 in?
They were still a playoff team with Goff even on the team last year.
Bro, do we not see?
They're definitely better. They're definitely better. Don't get me wrong. They're a better team, but it's like he's not top 3 quarterbacks right now. Like he's not better than Justin Herbert. He's not better than Pat Mahomes right now. Like he's kind of like floating around with that thought. Like I'd even put Dak Prescott before I would put him up there right now. Dak Prescott means more right now. I'm being honest.
They have the softest schedule in football. Stop right now because you act like Matthew Stafford's not putting up numbers. If he didn't get taken out of the Giants game on Sunday, he's going over 300 yards easy. That's why he's not top 3 in passing yards, but he's top 3 in tutties. Like he's right up there. Like I don't know what you guys are talking about. What you're not seeing with the Rams.
I want to hear Kyle's top 5 MVP candidates right now.
We're not doing that right now. Nope.
Derrick Henry should be there, even though it's ridiculous that they say.
I'm not going to be a homer, but I'll throw him in a top 5 there.
Yeah, we're not doing MVP candidates right now. I'll say Week 6. What looked forward to me the most, or what stood out to me the most, the Chargers. When I said Herbie fully loaded this week, I didn't mean get fully loaded on the plane and get absolutely hammered before you got to play a game at Baltimore. The Chargers overall, they got crushed on every single phase of the game. All 4 phases, they got destroyed. Now, they made a lot of mental mistakes. They absolutely just did not game plan at all for Baltimore. They did whatever they wanted. And Brandon Staley's an aggressive coach. He's going to live and die with going for a 4th down. 7-1 this season heading into the game against Baltimore on 4th downs. I mean, they just couldn't pick one up. Mike Will's dropping balls. Jared Cook's dropping balls. Herbert's missing throws. It just was not looking good. And they really need this bye week to just clear their heads. Their season, by no stretch of the imagination, is over whatsoever. But this is one of those games that you kind of need a kick in the ass early in the season to say, hey, we need to make some adjustments. The one thing that I don't think is going to be adjusted because it's been shredded, the Chargers still boast the worst run defense in football, and that's going to be a big, big problem going down the stretch. This might be their Achilles heel, why they don't take the next step this season. If they do indeed make the playoffs, they're going to need to fix that going forward, because you cannot rely on Justin Herbert to be putting up 35 plus a week in order to win. It's not sustainable. I mean, Kansas City might be the only team that could do that, but now even look at what Kansas City's doing. It's going to be tough. You're going to have to really step up in the run game if you're the LA Chargers.
To your point, Johnny, I mean, Latavius Murray goes out in the second quarter of this game, and basically Baltimore just continued to have their way on the ground. And I mean, Devontae Freeman is past his prime at this point in his career, and he still had a nice day on the ground, to give you an idea of how bad that defense just was against the run. Yeah,
certainly. But that was week 6. Now we got week 7. So what's the matchup you're looking forward to the most, Kyle?
I'm going to honestly have to take a peek here. I haven't taken a look at the matchups because I'm kind of still reeling a little bit from the fact that
unprepared. Nick, who is your week 7 matchup you're looking forward to the most?
Yeah, we got to see if your Titans can follow it up next week, hosting the Kansas City Chiefs. It's going to be an intriguing matchup, to say the least, and we will see what happens. Two teams now look like they turned their seasons around, and they're going to be going head to head. And the loser of this matchup, they're just you're not going to be sitting too pretty there. They'll still be in decent shape, but it's a must-win for both teams.
So we got a rematch of the 2019 AFC Championship game where the Chiefs won 35-24. Now, if you're looking at Kansas City from a spread perspective, right now they moved up to minus 5.5, I should say. They've only covered 2 spreads in their last 8 games. They're 3-13-1 in their last 17. Now, we've seen Patrick Mahomes try to overcompensate, make really stupid decisions. He's tied for second with the most interceptions in the NFL with 8. He's made some really bad decisions that we obviously know how bad Kansas City's defense is. They are absolutely brutal. They're bottom 5 in points. They're bottom 5 in overall total defense. And you're not going to win a championship like that this season, in my opinion, even though they have a top 2 offense behind Dallas with 433.5 yards per game and 5th in points per game with 30.8. It's just not sustainable. Now, here's what I'll say about the Titans, though. I love what they did on Monday night. Derrick Henry stays the king. He looks like he's on pace for back-to-back 2,000-yard seasons, on pace for 27 rushing touchdowns. We're running out of superlatives to say about King Henry. But when you look at it, here's the deal. Tennessee, their defense is going from bad to worse. They're going to be rolling out the skeleton crew in their defensive backfield. Caleb Farley out for the year. We don't know if Christian Fulton's going to play. Their backups are getting hurt as well. Now, going against Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, that's not a recipe for success. The only way I could really see Tennessee taking care of it is if Henry's getting 35 carries against a really bad Kansas City defense and trying to play clock control, because I got to be honest, Tennessee, otherwise, I don't think they're going to beat Kansas City in a shootout, because I think Patrick Mahomes and company is probably going to put up close to 40 points.
Yeah, I agree with you there, John. I mean, that's the formula for the Tennessee Titans this week for sure. Absolutely. This, as soon as, because I've been up all night ever since watching that game. I mean, the Titans kept me up with the craziness at the end of that game, and Schwarber hitting that grand salami earlier on in the night. I mean, I was wired. So seeing that the Chiefs were next on the list, this is a big one for them. They got to step up. They're 5.5-point underdogs at home again. Same spot that they just were on Monday night. It's time to put up or shut up and see if you can avenge what happened in 2019, because I really think that they let one go where they could have beaten Kansas City that day. They just kind of got away from, we were talking about in baseball, getting away from what gets you there. In that AFC Championship game, Tennessee got away from what got them there. That's
100%. And in terms of the spread here, I'm not 100% sure I'm ready to pick a side. I need to see what all the injuries are going on, if Chris Jones is going to play. But at the end of the day, man, even though Ryan Tannehill is 11-6 straight up at home since 2019, coming off a short week with all these injuries, we already know that Caleb Farley's done, and it's just not looking good. I'd probably say Kansas City on the money line here. TBD. We'll have the betting show later this week discussing maybe if I'm ready to pick a side early indications, I'd still probably lean with Kansas City, but before I confirm with that, I need to see a little bit more on the injury report.
For the next, sorry, I was just gonna say I'll take Kansas City money line there, but I like the Titans to cover the point spread, and I like the over.
We have to see what kind of movement we're getting here. 5.5. It was 4.5 earlier today, moved up to 5.5. We're going to see if we're going to get this movement up to 6.5, even 7. That's a TBD here. Now, next game, it's not a sexy game by any stretch, but because of the large spreads going on this week, we're closing in. If Green Bay moves up to 10, we're going to have 4 double-digit spreads this week. That's just astronomical. The favorites were absolutely chalk last week. But I got to go with the game. I got to go with my team this season. Rams at home laying 15 points to the Detroit Lions. The main reason here, Matthew Stafford, revenge season. I'm not even going to mention Jared Goff. Listen, yeah, Stafford chose to leave Detroit, but he's got to have a grudge. He's got to have a lot of pent-up emotion about the way Detroit handled their roster constructions basically his entire tenure since 2009 as the Lions quarterback. I think he's going to be ready to come out and absolutely show out here. I'm really tempted to take the Rams minus 15. I think that they're going to put up 35 points, similar to what they did with the Giants, and just kind of ice the game late, early in the fourth quarter. I do expect LA to just continue their torrid scoring pace and destroy a really terrible Detroit Lions team that, although their defense has been somewhat frisky a little bit, their offense, man, it is bad. Like, really bad. They failed to score 20 points in the last 5 games.
I feel bad for Jared Goff.
I don't.
Why not? He's put in a bad position. I mean, he didn't sign with the Detroit Lions. He signed with the Rams. He's being sent over here. He's likely going to lose his job as a starter after this season, but he has no weapons around him. But I don't know what the Lions are thinking, because if you follow college football at all, like I know Kyle does, this is like the worst draft class in years for quarterbacks. So there's really not anybody there worth taking. So I hope he has a good game, but I mean, the Rams are going to win this one, but you got to fade the public in this one, Johnny, because I think everyone's going to be putting money on the Rams here at minus 15.
Nick, to your college point, real quick. Spencer Rattler, who was the consensus number 1 pick and the Heisman favorite at the beginning of the year, benched. So we'll have to see what happens as far as quarterbacks are concerned. But there's nobody that really stands out right away right now.
I'll tell you what, though, Detroit's got the 5th worst scoring offense in football this year, 18.2 points per game. I want to see, I want to see where the points are going to come from against the Rams. I really do. If LA doesn't, not treat this as a trap game and doesn't look past the Lions, I mean, I just don't see LA putting up less than 31 points unless they just completely run the ball. The only guy I really see having a big game is probably DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift right now is tied for first in the NFL in receptions for a running back with 34 with Najee Harris. He's on pace for 91 catches this year, which would be great for fantasy owners. But in real life, I don't know if I see Detroit really hanging tough in this one. This could be a
backdoor cover game.
Kind of like how they did with the spread against the Niners.
A little bit like that, yeah. But also I could also see, like, because this is where I had a problem with the Rams last year, where they had the Jets on their schedule and they didn't even show up for that 17-point game. That's what I worry about here with something like that kind of big of a spread with the Rams, is that, maybe the Lions, just want to be professional for Dan Campbell. Look, I understand that they're not a good team, that they're look, Johnny, I get it. They're awful. You don't have to convince me. They're an awful football team. But the fact of the matter is they professionally show up to play for Dan Campbell. That's the only thing that would scare me in this game. I will tell you something, though, as far as games this weekend, I love Cincinnati and Baltimore.
That's a fair point. I want to see how Baltimore comes out after playing such a great game.
Forget Baltimore. I want to see how Cincinnati does. Are they for real?
Jamar Chase.
They typically haven't had success against the Ravens, so this is definitely one to watch. I mean, a lot of times Baltimore's just blown the doors off Cincinnati. Cincinnati hasn't been very competitive.
Well, of course, yeah.
They're a little bit of a fraudulent team, in my opinion. I mean, they've taken steps forward, but I think they're far from being there. But real quick, last point on this Rams game. Let's not forget, Matthew Stafford revenge season. I think maybe we could see 330 and 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns from Stafford in this one. I think he wants to stick it to Detroit a little bit and might be tempted to run up the score a little bit extra.
I could see 5 or 6 in this one, honestly, from him.
I'd love it. I would love it. So as we're wrapping up the show here, we got my favorite segment of the week, Gambling Guinea's best betting trends. I don't love the teasers so far this week. I have to really do some soul searching. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a taste here. We got the Carolina Panthers -2.5 at the New York Giants. Anybody that pays attention to what the New York Giants do at home would know that they are, since 2019, 5-14 against the spread and straight up. Not great. 0-3 at home this season. Better yet, 9-26 ATS and straight up at home since 2017. They are 3-11 against the spread, 2-12 straight up as a home dog since 2019. Not great. Carolina, even though they've lost 3 straight, Matt Rule is committed and vowed to run the ball more. And although Sam Darnold has not played what we saw the first 3 weeks, I think Carolina is in a get-right spot here at the New York Giants. I mean, let's call it what it is. Carolina's covered the spread on the road since 2020. They're 8-2, so I think Carolina should win this game by close to a touchdown. That being said, we have our final thoughts here. Nick, take us away.
All right. Unfortunately, the NBA season tips off tonight, so that means we got months and months here of Brooklyn Nets and Los Angeles Lakers talk. Let's hope neither of those teams win a championship. You have the Nets versus Bucks tonight and the Warriors versus Lakers tonight, and I think that's going to be the previews for the conference finals. So I'll give my NBA predictions here for the finals. I'll say it's going to be Bucks taking on the Warriors. Klay Thompson's back. Bucks looking to go buck to buck. We'll see what happens.
The more important part of that news is now AEW Dynamite gets moved to Saturday nights.
They already moved for the NHL, but it's moving to TBS on Wednesdays in January.
I'd say my final thoughts are it's my birthday this weekend. Looking to get a couple butter.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
We're getting old, man. We're getting old. 28. This is my last week, last few days as a 27-year-old, and it's been a great year. Had a lot of successful things, a lot of great things happened, a lot of life changes, and so far I would say it's probably been one of, if not my best year. So I'm looking forward to entering 28, continuing to build on the success. I really appreciate all the contributions from you guys. Appreciate everybody tuning in every week. It's a true joy to be doing this and looking to get better each and every week. And let's enter 28 with a bang.
If I could, with my final thoughts for the Mets here, don't go and look to chase somebody that you might be a little out of your reach. I think somebody like a Mike Chernoff is perfect for the Mets right now, or somebody like in like the White Sox organization. You know, get somebody that is ready to prove themselves and hungry to prove themselves in a situation like the New York Mets, where you now have the money to spend, unlike what you had with the Wilpons. And prove themselves to get rid of this curse that has taken over this franchise. And Nick, I feel for you, man, because, you know, some Met fans really, we have a little bit of a understanding with each other. We don't hate each other like Yankees fans and Red Sox fans. We have an understanding. 86 happened and we're kind of washed hands with it. You know what I mean? So I want to see the Mets get right here. Go get somebody like a Mike Chernoff. And as far as your manager goes, go and get somebody that's like a bench coach, just like what. And I know you're going to hate this reference, Nick, but like Alex Cora when the Red Sox.
Give me Joe McEwing from the White Sox. I'll take it.
There you go. Your lips to God's ears, as somebody wise would once say.
So thank everybody for joining us. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at _JohnnyVTV. Nick's at Nick_Durst, and Kyle does not have a Twitter. But truly appreciate you joining us and checking on Friday, man. The birthday boy will be bringing you some picks for this week. Looking for a rebound. A little bit rough this week. First losing week of the season. But you know what? It's a new week, man. So we're going to have a good one.
Hey, I held it down for the group over here.
I held it down for the group. He had a winning week. God bless, Kyle. Tune in next week. See you then.